Plug channel. In today's video, we have some special guests. We have Marvin and Gloria, who they're going to be dropping some exclusive credit information. So welcome to the channel, Marvin and Gloria. Glad to have you.
Hey, we're doing great.
Amazing.
And thanks for having us on.
Most definitely.
Absolutely. And by the way, Marvin and Gloria have a really cool YouTube channel. I've dropped a link in the description of the video. They go over a lot of credit stuff, a lot of marketing information. So definitely make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. So let's get right into it. Now, I wanted to get sort of the backstory of how you got into financial education, credit repair, funding, financial literacy. What kind of prompted you to go on this journey of?
Well, for me, I was actually probably my first client. I ended up losing my first business, and I had bad credit for the first time. I was like 28, 29 years old, and nobody in my family could like really tell me like, how do you fix it or what do you do? So I went down this long journey of starting to repair my own credit. Then, you know, as time went on, 08 happened. And then I got into the business of doing credit because everybody at that time that I knew, because I was a real estate investor, needed their credit fixed. And that's what kind of prompted me to start the business.
And I'm just going to be honest, I just married into it. It wasn't like I decided, hey, I want to do credit. When I married Marvin, it just became a part of my life.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You had no choice.
Yes.
Excellent. So the segue into that, I wanted to get your perspective because you've obviously been in the space a little bit longer than I have, but I just want to get some context, even to back in 2008 that you referenced during the last great recession. What sort of changes have you noticed between that time and now as it relates to, let's say, obtaining business credit or even just how the whole credit system works? What was it like and what were sort of some of the difference you've observed back then versus now?
Well, one thing I would say, authorized users, the effect of them have been lessened over time. I remember when we could add one authorized user, you may have had one credit card, First Premier, First Progress, whatever. And we were able to get you $50,000 in a business line of credit, get your credit totally started. Yep. And I think now, if I could just name one main difference, the effect of authorized users have lessened greatly.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, I think something to tell your age a little bit. Even, you know, so credit has evolved over the years, you know, like it's changed so much. I remember, you know, when I met Marvin and he was telling me, I was talking to him and his mom, and she was like, you know, she started him off with a Discover card. Yeah. Because he was a business owner at a very young age. And she was, you know, she put him on the Discover card. He was using it to buy material and everything, but it wasn't a business card. It was a personal card at that time. Yeah. And she was like, okay, these big bills are scaring me. I'm going to just give you this card. So she changed over the card to Marvin's name, and he didn't even have to go through a lot to do it or, you know, get pre-approved or any of that. They just changed who was the owner of the card straight from her over to him. Yeah. Like I went from an authorized user to probably a joint applicant. And then eventually she wanted me to remove her. So I was the sole owner of the card, had all of those years, had a $16,000 limit. And I probably was 21 years old. Yeah. So it was awesome.
Wow. And for those who aren't aware, there's a difference between an authorized user and a joint account holder. So the main difference is, so authorized users kind of get some of the benefit of having the previous history reported or inheriting that previous history, but not necessarily responsible for the debt. And it's much easier to get removed or disassociated with the authorized user versus a joint account holder. But the benefit of the joint account holder is that it is a primary account. So it holds a lot more weight in terms of even just how underwriters look at it, you know, aside from just improving your credit score. Before I get into the other topics, I do want to address your background. So I see looks like a ClickFunnels award on your wall. How did you come about receiving that?
Well, it's funny. That was another rabbit hole. One day I wanted a better website. I was kind of fed up with my website. I felt like I wasn't getting as many leads or customers as I should. So I went digging on the internet. I found Russell Brunson and ClickFunnels, and I paid for it for like 6 months, and I had no clue of what I was doing, how to build it. I didn't watch the videos.
Yeah.
But we ended up getting a virtual assistant. We really started working on it. And over time, it started to scale our business. As far as leads coming in, we started doing paid advertising on Facebook, and Instagram was our first paid advertising. And after that, it just skyrocketed our business. And when you get that award, it means you've made over 7 figures in a year.
But let me say this. The problem I had with ClickFunnels in the beginning, we were paying for ClickFunnels and we weren't using it. Why is this $200 and some coming out of our account every month? What is this?
And I was like, babe, just trust me. I think this guy knows what he's doing. I just gotta watch the videos.
I'm gonna do something with it. I was like, Marvin. So we had ClickFunnels for what? Probably
6 months,
about 6 to 8 months, paying for it monthly. And we didn't use it because we were trying to Marvin was trying to figure it out.
And I told you, I said, babe, I promise you this, we're going to walk across that stage one day.
Yeah, he did.
And I had no clue of what the award was all about. And after I read it, I was like, okay, all right. Yeah. And so we finally walked across the stage. It was like I pinched Gloria as we were getting ready to go. And we got the award. I said, remember, I told you we were going to do this.
So let me ask you, so was that related to your credit repair business?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it was directly related. It helped us scale to a level I wouldn't have believed we would have done that. Like that website, I mean, the funnel, excuse me, was had a lot to do with it.
Piggybacking into the credit repair, you know, a lot has changed even in that space. I mean, I remember 5-6 years ago, there was a lot of information, especially like on YouTube, social media, you know, different, let's say, templates and different methods of getting things removed. What have you seen in terms of any changes, if any at all, just in terms of the methods in which people are using to repair their credit?
Yeah, we've actually met some employees that worked at TransUnion. So we have like our own opinion, but we have an opinion from the inside. So I would start off first by saying the template letters have just flooded, you know, the internet and also flooded the bureaus and become really ineffective.
Most definitely. They want to see it come from your address.
Yeah.
Like they're really smart. Like it's so many credit repair companies out there nowadays. And now they're looking at the postal code. Where is that letter actually coming from? Is this a credit repair company or is this actually coming from the consumer?
Yep. And I think also now, like Gloria said, the consumer has to mail it. And then the biggest change I think I've seen is AI. You know, artificial intelligence to me has made everything so much faster that really the consumer ought to really consider doing it themselves, because AI would just walk you right through it.
Yeah. And it only takes minutes.
Yeah.
Good point you made about just some of the ways, I guess, that the credit reporting agencies almost kind of play defense to a certain degree. One of my credit repair affiliates, they basically were telling me that they would literally drive to different counties, different cities to mail out letters, because if they saw too many going through the same, I guess, postal zip code, then that would get flagged, right? And you know, I've seen videos online where, you know, people have hundreds of letters and they're taking them to the same, you know, post office. So what is your opinion in terms of like, you know, credit repair? Because I know right now defaults have been increasing every quarter, at least when it comes to, you know, personal credit cards and personal loans since 2021. What I've seen is like a huge demand for credit repair. But at the same time, I think a lot of consumers may not know like what the right approach is, because again, there are a lot of services now that utilize AI. There's some that use like the traditional methods. What do you think is the most effective going forward?
That's a great question. And I'm going to answer this a couple ways. One, from the actual credit bureaus. You know, what they told us is when they see a handwritten letter, those are the letters that make them shake a little bit, because, you know, I don't know if a lot of consumers notice, but they have a time limit or a quota that they have to go by to look at a dispute letter. And we heard this from a TransUnion employee where somebody wrote like 150-page letter for one item. And so sometimes you'll get that employee at the credit bureau that's got to get past their time limit. They're just going to stamp delete it, call it a day, because they don't want to make a mistake. And then that could cost them their job. So first thing I would say, I think the best hands down way is to write the letter. Yeah. And then number two,
a heartfelt letter.
Yeah, a heartfelt letter.
Because she told us that someone wrote a heartfelt letter.
Yeah.
And she wiped off all of their stuff because of the letter.
Yeah. And then my first mentor in credit, he actually taught me the same way, to sit down, handwrite the letters. And I just think now AI, I think, is number two, I'm sorry.
Because it writes you a unique letter.
It writes you a unique letter.
Every single time.
And I think sometimes people are going overboard with all this consumer law. It's really two things you need to put in that letter: inaccurate, incomplete, and the burden of proof is on the creditor to prove that it's yours, or not. And
I think it's all about too, like, taking your power back.
Yeah.
As a consumer, like, we don't want to accept responsibility. It's your credit. So you need to dig deep into understanding credit so that you don't get in the same situation again, as well as taking your power back and start working and understanding your credit. That I think that's the most effective way to me is, understanding your credit, sitting down and working on it. You can spend 15 minutes a month on working on your personal credit, and it can make a big difference.
Yeah. And then, one other point, we've mailed letters out through LetterStream, virtually. We've mailed out letters in the mailbox. And I think it's time for the consumer, even if they're getting help from someone or a credit repair company, mail your own letters for two reasons. One, the credit bureau will accept it. And then two, you actually know that something is happening.
Most definitely.
The sort of the DIY strategy of going about it. For one, you are going to learn eventually. But I think a lot of consumers, it might sound intimidating, or maybe there's not enough follow through because, again, everything might not come off your report the first round of disputes, but you have to be consistent and invested in the process of learning and then, executing on it. Now, let's transition over. I want to talk about funding and just some of the changes that I've seen. I've been in, I would say, the financial education space for the past 5 years or so, a little bit longer. One thing that I did early on is just to gather information, is go through these processes of applying for credit, trying to obtain business funding. And I was like a lot of people online looking at, different ways of building business credit. They talked about the Quill, the Uline, the Granger, right? I did all that, a lot of trial and error. And what I noticed was that there was this assumption that, okay, let's say if my personal credit was not good, I can go build business credit and then go get loans and lines of credit. And so I tried that, right? And it didn't pan out, right? It wasn't until I started to actually, generate some revenue and, become a little bit more established that certain things started to unlock. Let me ask you this. In terms of business credit, could you kind of explain to people different scenarios in terms of what business credit can unlock and what it can't unlock? And, what are some details that are missing? Because what I see a lot is that, people will go through the process of building business credit, but then when it comes to actually utilizing and leveraging that business credit, there's just a mismatch in terms of expectations, right? So it's like, okay, I got a Dun & Bradstreet 80 Paydex, and I went to Truist, and they said I needed tax return. So it's like I feel like there's sort of a misalignment of expectations. What can you share just in terms of what business credit can and cannot do?
Yeah, for me, it's funny. Before I even got into business, I got a realistic view of business credit because my first bookkeeper, he told me to go set up a Dun & Bradstreet account in 1993. This is when I had to walk into office and set it up, get my number, all of that. So from the beginning, I knew that I wanted the accounts that could benefit me at the time. It wasn't the internet around. I think right now the internet is kind of diluted business credit and also given a false expectation of it. So I would say to people, when you're looking at business credit, go get the accounts that you actually need and you can use. I think so many people are getting accounts just to get a score and to say, hey, I got an 80 Paydex. I didn't even care about the 80 Paydex. I wanted 30 days to be able to pay for my material so I could finance my job. That's
Right.
what I wanted. And I think so many people are thinking that, hey, I'm gonna go get this 80 paydex, like you said, walk in Truist and get $50,000 with no personal guarantee. And that's just so far from the truth.
And people have to realize that, the bank wants to know two things: how they're going to get paid their money back, and do you have revenue coming in? And we, for some reason, we just can't understand that. We just think that we just go have this business, no revenue, and the bank is just going to give us money and we have bad credit.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. The bank wants to see that you're responsible. So if you're not paying your personal bills on time, what makes me think you're going to pay me back on the business side?
Correct.
And that's the purpose of them looking at your personal credit. They want to see how good you are with money. What is your highest credit limit?
Yeah.
So if Chase trusts you to give you a $25,000 credit card, then I might be able to give you $50,000 over here on the business side because you have a high limit. So it shows me that you're responsible and that you know how to handle high limit cards.
Yeah. And if I was to give any importance, I would say personal credit to me is more important than business credit. But I think that the challenge in business and in life is to try to balance both. Like try to make sure you got good business credit, but then also, maintain your personal credit. Don't think that one is better than the other if you're in business.
Absolutely. And I think that's maybe where sometimes it's misconstrued that perhaps business credit is a replacement for having insufficient personal credit, when that's not the case. And another question I wanted to follow up, this whole no PG, right? So of course, we know with like vendor credit, there's ways of getting, no PG. But I always tell people this, like, until you're really at that corporate level, and by corporate level, let's say you're generating over $5 million per year for multiple years, right? Where it's you're not actually putting your social security number on an application because the business is just established enough. Most of what I cover is really small business credit, not necessarily corporate credit, which, you're thinking about Walmart, McDonald's, Nvidia, like that's corporate level. Most of what we talk about is going to be small business. But so we see a lot about, shelf corps and building business credit and getting funded. We talked about some of the limitations. What are some of the benefits, let's say for that business owner who might have tarnished personal credit to where they can't use their credit to PG for credit cards? Maybe they don't have the cash flow. You hinted to it about actually using the net 30s. What are some actual benefits of business credit for that type of profile where their personal credit is not that great and they're not generating revenue? What are some of the things they can do with business credit to get ahead?
Well, one of the main benefits I think that most people probably underutilize is you're able to get vehicles and equipment with no personal guarantee. And I did that in my construction company. I went out and bought $35,000 trucks, $40,000 trucks. And it was funny when I went to the dealer, because I had did so much research on my Dun & Bradstreet and my business credit at the time. I walked on the dealership and I said, ma'am, can I get that dually over there? And I want that one over there with the ground effects. Remember the ground effects? And she goes, what? And I said, well, ma'am, call my banker if you need, some assistance on it. The lady looked at me like I was out of my mind, but I knew that I could buy both of those. I knew my banking relationship was good. And I was able to also finance my trailers. So imagine I got the vehicle and I got the equipment, and it was 2 trucks, 2 trailers, probably totaled about $90,000 by the time I was done. No down payment because I had excellent credit. And then I think a lot of times you got to look at the amount of the trade lines that you actually have on your business credit. It makes a difference.
Right. And we can put trade lines on your business credit, but you need to think about having at least a 2-year-old business.
Yeah. And I would say anywhere from 3 to 5 if you really want to raise a lot of capital with your business.
That's a really good point. And I think it's oftentimes overlooked when it comes to, business credit, is that the equipment, right? So a lot of the equipment that you can get based off of business credit that's not really looking at your personal credit, but having access to that type of credit will allow your business to make money, right? So going back to the point you made, it's like sometimes it's not like we need a bank loan where we're getting the cash to go then use that same cash and, buy the same things that we probably could have done just with equipment finance. I think you guys mentioned that on your live the other week. Like sometimes it's not the line of credit or the term loan that we necessarily need. We can accomplish sort of the same thing, but using equipment finance. And it's the same thing that you're going to purchase to then go and enable you to make more money. So let's go back to the business vehicle. I've gone through the process a couple of times in terms of like purchasing a vehicle under the business name. Now, my first couple of experiences with that, I actually did have to undergo a personal credit check, right? But the last time that I did this about a year ago, I also had to do a personal credit check. But the reason I was told from the finance manager was because I didn't have comparable credit at that particular price point, right? But what I was told was that next time I come around, having that comparable, then I'm able to get it without no personal guarantee. So let's talk about some of the different considerations when it comes to, business financing vehicles under the business name. A lot of people know like there's different lenders out there. You have Ford Motor, Ally Financial, BMW Financials. Literally, you're able to finance these vehicles under your business entity without necessarily using your personal credit. Explain kind of how that works. Like, let's say, I have a 2-year-old business and I'm trying to get, no PG business financing. What does my business profile need to look like?
Well, I want to say this first, it could depend on the type of vehicle, because I've been talking to people that have garbage businesses and they get garbage trucks or the towing, different types of tow trucks. So to say in general, I would say make sure your Experian, your SBFE is strong. And then also, depending on if you're looking at equipment, you could look at PayNet. And then some of the information will get transmitted over to Equifax. And depending on how old the company is, I don't think Dun & Bradstreet is as prevalent as it used to be.
Right.
But I would really focus on Experian, SBFE, and PayNet to make sure that those amounts are high. And if you guys need help with that, we go over that in our business, mentorship. We help a lot of our students strengthen their business credit, because a lot of times we'll start out with these net 30s that are 200, 300, maybe 1,000. But when you're talking about equipment, a lot of times you're looking at 20,000, 50,000, somewhere, around 70,000 on the highest, depending on the business.
Most definitely.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of business owners should concentrate on how high are my trade lines if you're trying to buy equipment. And like you said before, don't always think you got to cash out the truck or cash out the tour business or rental car business you're trying to start. You may be able to get loans for all of that.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely. I've actually had a couple consultations with, individuals. Let's say they have a Turo fleet, but utilize personal credit to acquire the vehicle, and now are in that situation where their personal utilization is so high. But if they had built out the comparables on the business side, they would have been able to get, no PG, business auto financing. So going back to your point that you mentioned that, if you have some comparables, let's say in terms of equipment financing that might report to PayNet or to Experian, that could actually be beneficial when, let's say, you're trying to go get a business, vehicle. Do you have any like real world kind of data points on like a specific, auto vehicle financing program and what those specific data points are? Like, are they using Experian? Are they using, PayNet? Do you have any that you could share, or is that something you reserve more so for the mentorship?
Yeah, I mean, we'll reserve more specifics for the mentorship, because it really depends on the type of vehicle. Because I've seen different lenders that will pull different bureaus. But like you said, Ally, I mean, we talked about it on our live a couple weeks ago. Ally is one that says right on their website that you can actually get the vehicles in the name of the business. And it happened to be the first company I went through. And this was in the late 90s that I went through Ally and got both of those vehicles I mentioned before. And they did it with no PG. At that particular time, you know, lenders switch all the time. They were looking more so at Dun and Bradstreet than they were at any bureau. But I had it already built out because I was really using my business credit to do business. And I think that's what consumers have to really, and new business owners have to really get through their head. You need to be using these accounts because it's not like personal credit. You know, business credit doesn't have the FCRA or the FDCPA for certain things. It's kind of like the Wild Wild West. It may report, it may not. So
even with that, there's places out there that can help you get that to report on your business credit. You know, business credit is a little different from personal credit because there's nobody governing the business credit like it is for personal credit. So business credit is wide open. You know, we did have a mentee that was able to add trade lines to her business profile, which she had been in business for several years and was able to go out and buy box trucks that she needed for her business because she was expanding. She was already making money, but she didn't want to continue to try to carry all of that business, all of that weight of her business on her personal credit. So what we did was we set her up where she was able to put her, she was able to add the trade lines and then able to go ahead and finance those trucks with no problem at all. Her personal credit wasn't that strong either. So
if someone's interested in perhaps, you know, getting some mentorship or some counseling in terms of building out their business profile, or maybe they're looking to, you know, get a brand new business vehicle, how do they get in contact with you? Do you have a program? I suppose I might put a link in the description, but what's the best way to reach out to you guys?
Yeah, they can set an appointment through our link where we do a one-on-one Zoom call. We give them up to 30 minutes to go over their plan, see if they need any, you know, assistance with making their business stronger. Because I think what most consumers have, they have an idea of what they want to do, but they don't have a plan. And one thing I've realized in business, you can listen to all this stuff on the internet, on TikTok, Instagram, you know, YouTube, but it may be different for you. You know, it may be a thing where you have to have a unique plan for your situation, because we just had a mentee a couple weeks ago. They had okay personal credit. Like they had two pretty decent credit cards. But I told them, I said, look, before you really go deep on the business side, you need to strengthen your personal credit a little bit. And then let's also strengthen the business to make your financial strength rating a lot stronger than what it is, so that you can get large equipment loans or large auto loans, or maybe in some cases, some lenders like Bank of America lets you get 4 vehicles.
Any sort of parting, I guess, words of advice for aspiring business owners, current business owners who are looking to, you know, leverage their credit to grow and scale their business?
Well, in my opinion, I'm gonna be honest with you. There's, you know, like there's financing out there for just about anyone's situation. You know, there's so much going on where we have fintech companies now that, you know, is a big deal where you can get money. You know, for me, I just feel like you need to get you some type of mentor or someone to help you with the roadmap. Sometimes you have to cover your ears because you're listening to so many different, you know, it's so much out here and you're getting it from so many different places. And you're trying to put it all together and you may not be putting it together the correct way. So for me, it's about, you know, like when I started business, I had to fail to succeed. So you know, we're restaurant owners as well. I've been in the restaurant industry for about 14, 15 years now. And I had to fail to get it right because I didn't have that roadmaps. I didn't have anyone to guide me or to help me get to where I was trying to go. It was just like trial and error, and I had to try to figure it out for myself. But once I was able to get a mentor, it just took me to a whole nother level. So I just think that sometimes we have to invest in ourselves and get that mentor or get someone to guide us to where we're trying to go. We're starting here, but how do you get to the end of that road?
Yeah. And I would say, you know, like Gloria said, my mom was my first mentor, and I was blessed to have other mentors along the way.
Yeah.
And, you know, the main thing is educate yourself.
Most definitely.
You know, and then if you're new in business, you may want to think about things like shelf corps. They can be used. You just have to know how to use them and how to implement them to kind of get a shortcut to be able to get business funding a little bit faster.
Well, man, this was a lot of great information. I definitely appreciate you guys coming on the platform and just, you know, sharing information. And guys, make sure you check out Marvin and Gloria's YouTube channel. I'll drop the link in the description of the video. Great YouTube channel. They put out a ton of great content. And if you are looking to get help with business funding, if you need high limit business trade lines, if you need shelf corps where you can add high limit business trade lines to then go get no PG business vehicle financing, Marvin and Gloria got the plug. So there's a link in the description. You guys can get a consultation. They'll go over your business credit profile with you and build out a roadmap to get you to where you need to be. So again, pleasure to have you on. And again, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I pinned their YouTube channel in the description of the video. Thanks for coming on board with us today. And you know, hopefully we'll have you guys on more regularly as well.
All right.